What is up, guys? Today we are going to be discussing the UFC fighters that have the most star potential. All right, now I'm mostly going to be discussing guys that are young, up-and-coming fighters, high-level prospects that are getting a lot of hype. We're not going to be talking about the old heads, and some of these guys are going to be champions. Maybe they're new champions. And let me just introduce some of the tiers before we get into it. The first tier is going to be the megastar tier. Not many fighters are going to be megastars, okay? Some of the bigger stars that I believe have potential to become stars are most likely going to be put in the Adesanya status tier, the UFC star tier, right? These aren't people that are on the Khabib level of stardom, the Conor McGregor level, but they're well known amongst any casual UFC fan, and they can consistently pull in decent pay-per-view numbers like 700,000 buys. Then we have fighters that are only going to get a little bit bigger, okay? Then we have fighters that are already at their peak. They're not going to get much bigger as a star. We have fighters that have very little potential. And last, the fighters with no star potential. And again, this is all going to be based on their potential in the future, okay? Which is why we're not going to talk about Conor McGregor. We know he's a megastar. The first guy that I'm going to put on this list is Leon Edwards. I'm going to put him in the very little potential tier. He's a very boring fighter. He doesn't have a great personality. That doesn't mean that Leon Edwards isn't a cool guy or whatever. It's just he has no star potential. Like, no one's going to be buying pay-per-views because of anything this guy says on the mic, all right? The only thing he has going for him is the fact that he's from the UK, and if a UK fighter is fighting in the UK, the crowd is popping. They have a great crowd, lots of energy. They're chanting and all that, but that's not going to mean that they're going to pull in a lot of pay-per-views. No one's buying pay-per-views because a UK crowd went wild when he fought in the UK, all right? So there's that. Leon Edwards, very little potential. Very little potential. Benoit St. Denis, okay? Benoit St. Denis. I actually think Benoit St. Denis has the style and the aura to be a UFC star, okay? Not only does he have one of the most entertaining fight styles in the UFC, unlike Leon Edwards, but he has an entire country behind him, and it's more intense than Leon Edwards, okay? UK fans get behind Leon Edwards because he's a champion from the UK, fair enough, yada, yada, yada. Benoit St. Denis fans in France get behind this guy because he's putting France on the map. He's a masculine figure out of France, defeating all the stereotypes of French people being quitters, quitting at the first sign of adversity. Benoit St. Denis is an absolute savage. He served his country, all right? This guy is basically like the most masculine figure out of France. Leon Edwards is just a fucking MMA fighter from the UK, all right? And he's not that entertaining. Benoit St. Denis is going to have like an intense following. And I think that that has a potential to get him out there as like a big star. Think about Conor McGregor and how hard the Irish people were riding with him. Think about Charles Oliveira, his story, how inspiring his story was. Sometimes it's just a good story. Sometimes it's just the aura that that fighter has. And Benoit St. Denis has an aura. Ex-mercenary. Kind of reminds me of Crow Cop in a way. Makes him look like a total badass in and of itself. The style of fighting he has. The fact that he has the whole country of France behind him. And, you know, it, again, defeats the stereotype of French people being like these weak quitters. So, yeah, massive star potential. Not a megastar. Just because I think he is a guy that's probably going to be a little humble, not really going to talk a lot of shit. English doesn't come so easily to him, so it's not like he's going to be on the mic selling fights to everyone around the world. But he has been talking a little bit of smack against Makhachev. He's been saying that Makhachev is loaded up to the gills on steroids and all that. He's kind of building a fight a little bit. And if he beats Islam Makhachev or he beats Charles Oliveira, if he beats one of those guys, my God, that passing of the torch is going to be a massive win for him. And that's going to kick him off into stardom right away. Pair that with the fight style. So Benoit St. Denis is up there. Khamzat Chimaev. So I do believe that Khamzat has potential to be a big star, not a megastar. His performances are great, but in a way, his hype is dying. And even though this guy already has 8 million followers, even though he may already be a bit of a draw, and if he continues to win and becomes a champion, he'll be a little bit of a bigger draw. He's Muslim, and that in and of itself gets him a big following. He reminds people of Khabib. That in and of itself gets him a big following, but he'll never be Khabib. Khabib came first, and unfortunately, people like Makhachev and Khamzat that are from the same region, Dagestan, Chechnya, they're always going to be in that shadow. They'll never be the first guy. The resume alone is not going to cement themselves as a megastar. It has to be also just becoming the GOAT of the sport, having an aura. Khamzat may have a bit of an aura, but he lost a lot of it. He lost a lot of his hype because he's not living up to the expectations of reaching his prime and being able to dominate the elite fighters. We hyped up Khamzat to maybe be the GOAT of the sport. We hyped him up to be able to run through people, even if they were elite, once he hit his prime. Not so that he can go out there and lose 2 out of 3 rounds to Kamaru Usman. Not so that he can go out there and gas out after 5 minutes. We look at him a little bit differently. The Khamzat Chimaev hype train, it's definitely halted a bit. Maybe he could pick up a couple more wins, but I don't think he's going to be a GOAT. I think he's going to be a good fighter, a very fun fighter to watch, a great grappler, but I don't think he'll get that much bigger, right? Even though he has this boisterous personality, he really just says, brother, okay, I understand it, okay? Makhachev, similar story. I put Makhachev in the same status. Unfortunately, always going to be in Khabib's shadow, right? Even if he gets a better resume, even if he puts together a better win streak than Khabib, he's always, unfortunately, going to be in Khabib's shadow. He has the Muslim world around him, and that's great. That's going to be big for him, but I don't know how much bigger he's going to get, especially because he's just had the biggest year the man could possibly have. 2 Volkanovski wins, a Charles Oliveira win in October of 2022. Even if he wins a second belt, he's not going to get that much bigger, but he's got a lot of followers. He's already a big star. I just don't know if he can blow it up that much more, right? And I don't see either of these guys having like a big rivalry fight in the future. Maybe Khamzat could have something with Bo or Adesanya. Maybe that could pick things up a little bit. And if he does actually live up to the expectations, maybe he comes back after a long layoff. That's the other thing, a long layoff. Khamzat Chimaev's always going to take these long layoffs. After another long layoff, if he comes back and he actually looks as good as we thought he was going to be in the beginning, and he dominates everyone in the first round, for sure, he could be a megastar. But if that's not the case and he's just going to be a good champ and that's it, not like the most special fighter you've ever seen, he's not going to be a megastar. Ilia Topuria. I'm going to put Ilia Topuria in the Adesanya status UFC star tier. Most people are in this tier so far. We're going to get to some of the other guys soon, trust me. But Ilia Topuria, he's going to have excellent performances. He's probably going to take the belt off of Volkanovski. And you look at his fight style, knocking people out. We don't really see a whole lot of KOs at featherweight. He's very cocky, right? He's got a brash personality. He likes to talk smack in Spanish. I could see him having a little bit of a rivalry with O'Malley in the future. Maybe he has a big fight with O'Malley. Yeah, he's young. He's got a lot of time ahead of him. He's only 26 years old. Imagine what this guy will be doing in his 30s. He has GOAT potential in that featherweight division. If you're looking at his skill set, he has a whole country of Spain behind him. There's never been a UFC champion from Spain, let alone a big UFC star from Spain. So it's going to be big for Ilia Topuria. Spanish speaking too. And the UFC loves that. A lot of people around the world speak Spanish, so that's going to be big as well for him. But I don't see him becoming a megastar. The only guy that I see becoming a megastar, and we may as well just put him on this list right now, is our boy Ian Garry. I genuinely think Ian Garry has what it takes to be a megastar. Now, he's going to have to continue to win, of course, but so does everybody that's going to have potential to be a big star. You can't just lose all your fucking fights, just like Nate Diaz needed to beat Conor McGregor. But if you think about it, this guy shut down the MMA media and had it all revolve around him when it wasn't even his fight week. The only bad sign is that he caught a stress-induced illness and he couldn't handle the drama going into UFC 296 fight week. He didn't show up to his media obligations. One would say maybe he's not cut out for the limelight. I understand that, but it all came out of nowhere. And I think that Ian Garry, given how unhinged he is, given that he has the blinders on and the earplugs in, he's not listening to anyone's reasonable advice when it comes to what's going on behind the scenes. Hey man, maybe you're being taken advantage of here behind the scenes. He's not listening to that. So maybe he genuinely doesn't give a fuck about what anyone has to say. And that, for a heel, is perfect. Ian Garry, people hate him. He has that Mayweather-esque type of allure to him where people are going to want to see him lose for as long as he's in this sport. He's never going to be a fan favorite, but I do think he could be the best heel ever. He's also got a fun fight style. He's also from Ireland. He's got the accent. He's cocky. Again, people are emotionally invested. He has this really weird situation going on behind the scenes. It's toxic. In 2024, people love that toxic drama, bro. And I genuinely think this guy has megastar status written in the stars for his future as long as he wins and as long as he can show up to do his interviews, because people are going to tune in. And when people do tune in and they get millions of views, Dana White's going to see that, and he's going to set up Ian Garry with favorable matchups, title fights. We'll get our rivalries. This guy has what it takes. Next up, we have Sean O'Malley. I'm going to put Sean O'Malley in a bit more famous tier. That's right. The big thing with O'Malley was becoming a champion in and of itself. That was it. We were talking about if this guy becomes a champion, just hold your horses. Like, we're off to the races. Things are going to get nutty. No, they haven't. This guy has the same amount of pop on social media as he did before he ever got the belt. His views on his YouTube channel, kind of the same. His views on his interviews, kind of the same. Like, O'Malley's not must-see TV. In the cage, he is. People love to see this guy perform. But I think that he's been boys with the Nelk Boys for a long time. No pun intended. He's been boys with the Nelk Boys. And it's not really doing much for him, okay? Yeah, he got on Andrew Schultz. Okay, you're not going to blow up with the casuals just because you're on Andrew Schultz. I just don't think O'Malley's going to get much bigger, okay? Being a champion, he got a couple 100,000 followers from that, but even if he beats Chito Vera, even if he beats another guy after it, I don't think this guy's going to be like a 6-time defending champion, and I don't think the performances are enough. And MMA fans are starting to dislike him a little bit because he's been pushed down our throats as like this big star. And you can kind of see his performances. He lives up to the hype when he's under the bright lights. He always shows out, but he doesn't match his look. Like, he doesn't have this big boisterous personality. He's got this crazy look. You expect more from him, and you're always disappointed when this guy is given the task of selling a fight. Also, Aljamain Sterling coming out in the media and saying that he was disappointed with the pay-per-view buys that he got at UFC 292, that it didn't sell as great as he expected it. And yeah, I see a lot more people today, way more than ever before, saying things like O'Malley's got the personality of a dry sock. So he can get a little bit bigger with some better performances, but it's not going to be something that is going to get that much crazier. Like, O'Malley's already getting mogged by Khamzat Chimaev with star power. Benoit St. Denis with a couple more wins is bigger than O'Malley. I think with one more win over someone like Dustin, for example, he's bigger than O'Malley. You got Ilia Topuria. Topuria beats Volk, boom, bigger than O'Malley. So, yeah, I just think you need a little bit of that personality as well. There's that. I think next up we have Arnold Allen. No star power. I get it. He's from the UK. That's a country that rides with you. But he's just super dry. Very, very dry. And unlike O'Malley, he doesn't really have anything to draw an attention. His performances aren't even that great. Like, he's entertaining to watch. He's very skilled, but he's not out here highlight reeling people. You know what I mean? He doesn't have that head kick KO moment like Leon had over Usman. If you have one of those, your career could change. But he would still be in the very little potential if he had one of those big moments, right? Arnold Allen, I'm sure he's great in real life. I'm sure he's cool, but he's not going to give us anything to remember on the mic. He's not going to sell a fight, and his low output is not going to make for the most entertaining fights either. So, yeah, I don't see Allen having any star potential. Put Arman Tsarukyan in the very little potential tier. And the reason I'm going to put Arman Tsarukyan in this tier is because even though he has a country behind him, it's a pretty small country. He's one of these brother guys, but he doesn't have like a big boisterous personality like Khamzat. He doesn't have Habib's blessing like Islam Makhachev. He's an entertaining fighter, but he rubs people the wrong way, and he's not got the polarizing personality to go with it. People just don't like him because of the shit that he said about Bobby Green after Bobby Green got smoked by Jalen Turner. He was gloating about that late stoppage. He tried to run up on Bobby Green and then tries to play the humble act, like, oh, I'm humble, brother. Like, dude, people don't really like him. Even if he becomes a champ and people can recognize how skilled he is, Arman's never going to be a big star. You know it. Everyone knows it, okay? Even if this guy gets like 5 finishes in a row, he ain't going to be that big of a star. Straight up, okay? I'm going to put Sean Strickland in the Adesanya tier, all right? I think that Strickland will defend his belt a couple more times. If he continues to win, I think he's going to blow up a lot more. Not to become a megastar, even though he's polarizing, and that's going to help him. Strickland's one of those guys that because he wears his heart on his sleeve and he says everything that comes to mind, nothing's going to shock you anymore. Whereas, like, for example, Ian Garry, his situation is so unbelievably strange that it's like straight out of a movie, where Sean Strickland, yeah, he's like Trevor from GTA in real life. Sometimes you can't believe that this is a real person that's been able to become a UFC champ anyway. He represents America. That's cool. But at the same time, it's like once you've heard a Strickland interview, you've heard them all. He's not going to get a lot of attention from the media outside of hardcore MMA media, just because people are going to want to run away from him. And because of that, I don't think he's going to be that big with the casual fan base ever. The drama that Sean Strickland... Well, there's really no Sean Strickland drama, to be honest. It's like, this guy has said everything, so nothing catches people off guard, to be honest. Whereas Ian Garry's drama is like the relationship drama outside of the UFC, the getting kicked out of gyms drama, and that's, in a way, more interesting to talk about sometimes. Strickland doesn't really have drama, but he's got the crazy personality. His fight style is really a big reason why I don't think that Sean Strickland is going to be a megastar. He's got a bit of a boring fight style. I understand the boxing defense is really high level, and we appreciate some good skill 100%, but it's not a fan-friendly style. He's not going to bring in any eyes with the fights themselves. And, I mean, outside of Dricus du Plessis, Adesanya, maybe he could have a fun build-up with Khamzat Chimaev. Maybe he could be a megastar, but for whatever reason, I just don't see Strickland getting into that, like, million buys status. Next up, we have Justin Gaethje. I think Gaethje's already at his peak. Unless he head kicks Makhachev. Again, if anyone head kicks the dominant champion, they're going to blow up more than we expected. But if his career plays out how we expect, he loses to Makhachev, something like that, even if he has a couple more good fights, he's not going to get much bigger, okay? He's been in the game for a while. He's been putting out classics left and right. He fought in the BMF fight. He knocked out Dustin Poirier. We get it with Justin Gaethje. He's a great fighter. He's not going to sell fights on the mic. He's not got a boisterous personality. It's all in the cage, and the casuals are not really going to get behind him that much, okay? Bo Nickal. I'll put Bo Nickal in the UFC star Adesanya status tier. I think that Bo Nickal, he's as American as apple pie. Blue-collar guy, loves to hunt. You know, American wrestling, putting American wrestling on the map. He could have a big fight with someone like Khamzat Chimaev, America versus Chechnya in Khamzat's case. America versus Russia. He's got a cocky and brash attitude. He's got a big following from college wrestling, but it's not a huge following from college wrestling. And even though he is, you know, as American as you can get in some ways, I don't think that that's enough. I mean, America doesn't get behind you as much as France for Benoit, as much as the UK, for example. It doesn't get behind you as much as Spain would or Ireland would. And that's real unfortunate. But that's also just because we have so many stars in America outside of MMA. Basketball, baseball, hockey, football. You get my point. Boxing, the UFC as well. It's just kind of the norm for us to have champions. And I know that I'm boasting a little bit, but it's the truth. So if Bo Nickal becomes a champ, I could see him maybe getting to that DC status and above just because the sport's bigger. That'd be a really good analogy. I think he could get to where Daniel Cormier got, maybe bigger than that. So I think he has a chance to just become a bigger Daniel Cormier, okay? Because the sport has grown. Next up, we have Merab Dvalishvili. Merab has no star power, okay? Even though I like Merab, even though this is the hungriest fighter in the UFC, and he may be the most dangerous fighter that ever walked the earth, because as I said, if you don't finish this guy in a one-on-one fight, I don't care if you're Francis Ngannou, you're gassing out first and you're toast. This dude is hungrier than anyone else. People will respect it. They certainly will, but they will not love to watch his fight style. No one wants to watch someone fail 50 takedowns and just push people around the cage and not damage them or not finish them or not actually succeed at anything. He has Georgians that are going to be getting behind him, but I think the Georgians would rather get behind someone like Guram or Ilia, because Ilia Topuria has like Georgian genes and whatnot. They'll get behind, who else is Georgian in the UFC? I swear there's another guy. But either way, what's his name? Fucking hell, the guy that got beat by Cater. Dude, this is actually pissing me off, the guy with the pea head. It looks like the Virgin from the Chad Virgin meme. Oh my gosh. Kicker. Giga Chikadze, man. The Giga Chad. Giga Chikadze. Yeah. People prefer those styles. Merab brings shame on his... I'm kidding. People like Merab in Georgia. because he's as Georgian. I said Bo Nickal's as American as apple pie. Merab is as Georgian as you name a Georgian food. There it is. I mean, this guy literally grew up in the Georgian mountains, the Georgian woods, flipping around rocks, tossing boulders instead of playing with toys. Merab Dvalishvili is a Chad. I'm a big fan of him, although I'm not the biggest fan of him. He just doesn't have star power. No one will get behind this guy. Even when he talks shit on the mic, he just doesn't have the charisma. Merab sounds like he's always lost his voice. He's got this really raspy voice. Sounds like he's lost it. And that's just not going to make people listen. So Merab Dvalishvili, even though he walks in a room, Merab walks in a room, there's a certain level of density and charisma that he has. Everyone knows the best fighters in the room. And Ngannou, John Jones, these guys all know Merab's that guy. They know they're in danger, but it doesn't really translate on the camera and the mic. And, you know, he's a little bit short. He's easy to miss sometimes. Merab doesn't have star power. On to the next one, Alexander Pantoja, no star power as well. He's from Brazil. Brazil has had a lot of champions, right? We talk about just because you're American doesn't mean you're going to blow up in America because there's already a lot of stars in America. Well, it's like that for MMA in Brazil. Like, there have been 1 million Brazilian UFC champions. This is just the next. And he happens to have the driest personality out of them all. He doesn't really have an aura. He's a flyweight. And unfortunately, we talked about Aljamain Sterling and how he wasn't impressed with the pay-per-view buys that O'Malley got him. The bantamweight division, the flyweight division, they're not the marquee divisions when it comes to selling fights, right? Like, the biggest bantamweight fight was TJ and Cody Garbrandt. It was O'Malley and Aljamain Sterling. And I, as a hardcore fan, love that. I prefer the bantamweight division over the flyweight division. For hardcore fans, it's much bigger, but they're not the biggest selling divisions. And I don't think flyweights are ever going to be megastars, even if it's Manel Kape, who's got a boisterous personality, who talks a lot of shit, who has a fun style. I don't think they're going to be big stars. And Pantoja, he's tough, he brings a war, but only hardcore fans are really going to know Pantoja and care about him. On to the next one, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think Shavkat has a chance to become a big star in the UFC too. Undefeated, finishes everyone. Excellent fighter. Seems like he has GOAT potential in the welterweight division, and he has the aura. Doesn't have the personality at all, which is why he'll never be a megastar. There's that. Not the most... Listen, let me just say this. I know you guys are going to be in the comments going crazy. Shavkat Rakhmonov doesn't have the most entertaining style on earth. That's all I'm saying. Okay? That doesn't mean he's not entertaining. Guess who else doesn't have the most entertaining style on earth? I don't think that Justin Gaethje does. Okay, now let me make my point. Justin Gaethje is extremely entertaining, more entertaining than Shavkat. The most entertaining style on earth is like the fighter you would pick, one fighter, most entertaining fighter on earth, Jiri Prochazka for me. Okay, I'm just saying Shavkat's not necessarily Gaethje level. Gaethje's like top 5, maybe most entertaining fighters. I don't think Shavkat's necessarily top 5 just because he's finishing people. He's entertaining, but what I'm saying is this. He's almost too good to ever just be a dumb fighter that goes out there and slugs like Jiri Prochazka. And I don't think his performances alone, for example, like, you get what the fuck I'm saying, man. You get what I'm saying. There's sometimes going to be moments where this guy is stinking it up against the fence, clinching like Magny. All right, even if he eventually gets a finish and people go crazy for that, his style is not always entertaining. He's not just a guy that's going to go out there and slug, and that's okay. That's okay, buddy. It's okay. People hate when I talk about how Shavkat's not necessarily top 10 most entertaining fighters in the game. He's exciting because he's a prospect and he's winning and he's going to be a future champion. He's excellent. He finishes people. That's exciting in and of itself. But not every Shavkat moment is chaos like Gaethje, okay? Like Benoit St, Denis, like Jiri, like Charles. And he has no personality. So he can't be a megastar is all I'm saying. Sorry, he can't be a megastar. The only time you can be a megastar if you're going to be an undefeated fighter and you're not going to have any personality is if your fight style is also insanely entertaining. You guys are getting pissed in the comments. My bad. Let me go on to the next one. I'm going to put Diego Lopez. I'm putting Diego Lopez in the star tier. I think that Diego Lopez can be like the Charles Oliveira of 145 pounds. Same kind of style, same level of aggression, perfect combination of submissions and knockout ability on the feet, very aggressive on the feet, similar Muay Thai style. They literally have the same build, the same aura, okay? Maybe not the same backstory, but one thing that Diego Lopez has is he's representing 2 countries. I believe he's Brazilian, but he trains out of Mexico and he speaks Spanish as well. And like he's lived in Mexico for a long time, so he has a lot of star power, a lot of potential as well. I think he can be a big star, similar to Charles. Maybe not as big as Charles, but he'll be bigger than O'Malley if he continues to win. He's a perfect example of someone that will just become famous just based on their fight style alone. Okay? He doesn't even have to win every fight. Just the fight style alone, he's going to become famous. I mean, look at how much he blew up after that one fight with Evloev. Next up, we have Dricus du Plessis. I think Dricus doesn't have that much potential. Okay? I think that if he becomes a champion, that's going to be big for South Africa. He's going to get a boost of followers similarly to O'Malley. But at the same time, even if this guy were to defend his belt a few times, even though his fight style is entertainment gold, I mean, not necessarily. It's not entertainment gold necessarily, but it's very fun. He's got a very fun fight style. I just don't think he's got the aura, the personality to hit the casual fan base necessarily, right? You're not necessarily going to tune into a Dricus fight because, holy shit, this Dricus beef, unless it's Strickland, but that's Strickland who's kind of responsible for it. Unless it's Izzy, but that's Izzy that's responsible for stirring that beef up. Even though Dricus stirred the pot too, and he had been poking the bear, Izzy really blew it up and turned it into something big, right? So Dricus can be somewhat of a star, but I don't think he'll ever get to the 700K buy status. I just don't think he will, okay? I just don't think he will. I mean, just look at his Instagram, right? Ilia Topuria hasn't fought for a title over, I think he has 2 million followers. Dricus du Plessis, not that big. I like Dricus du Plessis. I just don't think he'd become that big of a star. Chito Vera, I think I'll put him in a similar group to O'Malley and Dricus. People love Chito. I think he's got a bigger following and more fans than Dricus because, number one, he's representing Latin America, right? He speaks Spanish. He's also really cool. He speaks good English. Speaks English well. And he's got a really fun fight style. And he's in O'Malley's head, and he's kind of punking him. And everyone that dislikes O'Malley is rooting for Chito. He's down to earth. He's relatable. He's funny. It's just he doesn't necessarily have that it factor. He may have a country riding behind them, but it's not a massive country that's necessarily going to blow him up that big. So, yeah. I say Chito's going to get a bit more famous. Next up, we have Alex Pereira. You know what? I think that Pereira... I'll put him in the Adesanya status UFC star, 700K buys if he continues to win. If he wins one more fight or 2 more fights, he'll be in that status, okay? He'll be at that status. But I don't think he's necessarily going to hit that. I think he's in between a little bit more famous in the Adesanya status because even though people love Alex Pereira, he's like hardcore fans only are really getting behind this guy. He's someone that the casuals might hear of. Oh, this, freak athlete kickboxer that knocks everyone out. Won a bunch of titles in a different sport, came over to MMA, won titles in 2 weight classes, beat Izzy. There's a backstory there. So there's that. It helps him a lot. Yeah, I think he can be that 700K buy status. I'm fumbling and bumbling all over my words right now. Tom Aspinall, a bit more famous. Pains me to say that because I think this guy has GOAT potential at heavyweight. He's not got this brash personality. And I think that it's going to hold him back. I like Tom Aspinall. I think he's funny. I think he's relatable. I think he's cool and whatnot, but he's got a country of the UK behind him, but he still doesn't have a big following, right? Look at this guy's Instagram. He's like the uncrowned champ now that John Jones has basically decided to no longer fight any up-and-comers except for old man Stipe. He's like the uncrowned champ, and he only has like 300K Instagram followers. That's just not a big following. For whatever reason, he's not going to be a big star. I don't know why. I wish he had more potential, but he's not got that charisma. He's got crazy knockout power, submission ability, but for whatever reason, he's not going to transcend the sport. Next up, Bilal Muhammad. Very little potential. The reason I say he's not in the no star power is because he has, he's a very religious Muslim, and that in and of itself is going to be big for him if he becomes a champion. You look at guys like Makhachev and Habib and whatnot, but his fight style, pretty boring. His personality, people don't like him. They're never going to get behind him. So there's that. I don't think he has a lot of potential. Corey Sandhagen. I honestly think that Corey's at his peak. Even if he becomes a champ, he's not going to get much bigger, guys. Unfortunately, I like Corey Sandhagen a lot, but I think he's at his peak. Even if he becomes a champ, people just don't get behind him. I think Corey Sandhagen's one of the coolest guys in the game. Same thing with Tom Aspinall, but for whatever reason, they're not going to be big stars. Volkanovski, big star at his peak. Even if he beats Topuria, the hardcore fans will go crazy. That's not going to transcend the sport. If he beat Makhachev, that would have transcended the sport a little bit. What do I mean by that? Casual fans would have caught a glimpse of it. If the MMA fan base is going nuts about something, Volk just beat Makhachev, holy shit, this guy's the GOAT, 100%. People are going to start to take notice, but now that he didn't win that fight, the Ilia fight, even though Ilia has a lot of potential, if he beats Ilia, it's not going to build up his stardom that much, and the UFC understands that, which is why I believe that they're totally okay with rushing Volkanovski into this title fight because, again, Volk's not going to get much bigger. It's the perfect time to build up Ilia Topuria as a star. So, yeah, I think Volk is at his peak, and he's probably going to lose a bunch of fights from here on out because we know Volk is never going to retire on top. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time.